Hi everyone, it's Megan with Teach Me ABA, and I am helping Brittany knock out the ethics section. So let's get started. Today I'm going to be talking about responsibility in research and how that applies to behavior analysts. First, behavior analysts need to make sure that they're following all laws and regulations. So these regulations may be legal, they may be within the organization that you're doing research in, or the regulations that are part of the educational system that the research is taking place within. Also, all behavior analytic research needs to be passed through an ethical review board. Often cases this is called an IRB. And so what that means is that you have a group of individuals who are looking at the research study before any data is collected and making sure that all of the procedures within the study are ethical. If we're conducting research during service delivery, we need to make sure that we're not just being scientific nerds and prioritizing the data and our scientific interest over the best needs of the clients. We need to make sure that any research study that we're doing with a clinical client actually benefits that individual and doesn't do any harm. So just like we would implement the ethics code when we're providing treatment, if they are part of a research study, we need to think about it the exact same way. Another thing that you need to do is make sure that you obtain informed consent for your study. So if you're working with children, then you need confirmed consent from their caregiver, their legal guardian, but also you should try to obtain assent from the child prior to the study. So for example, in my thesis, where we taught kids to ask why, I made sure that prior to the beginning of every research session that they agreed to play with me. I had to change it and put it in words that our clients would understand, and they agreed to. And if they said no, then I wouldn't have conducted the research study that day. Now let's talk about confidentiality. Just like when you're providing treatment and you have to follow HIPAA guidelines, you also have to maintain confidentiality for all participants in your research. Whether they're a clinical population or whether you're doing research with college students with arbitrary relations, you still need to maintain their confidentiality. So what usually happens here is the participant is either given a number or a code name. In my research, I always like to name the participants after my favorite band members. Competence is another area that you need to think of when you're conducting research. So if I were conducting a research study, I would probably focus on verbal behavior or OBM because those are my specializations, and that is where I am competent to develop research protocols. However, if somebody came to me and wanted to develop an intervention to treat drug abuse using ABA, I would have to say, I'm sorry, I can't lead that research project because I'm not competent. So we need to make sure that we are practicing within our scope of competence, whether we're doing clinical work or we're doing research. Behavior analysts need to consider conflicts of interest before doing studies. So if you have a conflict of interest that may skew how you interpret your results, that is a concern and you should work to mitigate that. It's not always possible to get rid of all conflicts of interest, and so you need to make sure that you're reporting this while you're doing your research. It's also important to give credit to all people who were involved in a research project. So you can't use this to hang over their head, oh, if you don't do this additional portion, then you're not going to be on the publication. You need to make sure that from the outset of somebody's participation in your study, that it's outlined how much work they need to do in order to get their name on that publication and whether or not it's even feasible. Plagiarism! Don't plagiarize. If you are taking ideas or replicating something that somebody else has done, you need to give them credit for that. Don't take credit for something that wasn't your idea. Just like in our clinical work, we need to think about documentation and retaining records for research. So, similar to HIPAA, most organizations require that you keep your research data for 7 years. after that, you need to get rid of it in an ethical manner, which usually requires shredding it, but I'm sure you could burn it too. One of my favorite topics, the accuracy of data and how we're going to use it. So single subject research designs are great because we actually can see the data visually and interpret it that way. So we need to make sure that the data that we represent in our studies are accurate, that it corresponds with what our participants actually did, and we need to depict it in a way that actually paints the right picture. So there are a lot of ways that you can skew your data. Maybe I shouldn't give you any ideas, but making the y-axis really, really big or really, really small can make it look like there's a bigger or smaller effect of your intervention. So you need to be honest and paint and portray a true picture of what actually happened by providing accurate data and depicting it, representing it in an accurate way. And that is it for E7 in the Ethics Code. I hope this helps you study for the Task List 5 BCBA exam. Please like, subscribe, and share us with your friends.